Thank you for being with us the whole day. Um, okay, welcome back. What a crazy day, and I hope that you've gotten as much from it as I have. We really appreciate your engaging with us through this packed schedule. I hope you've been able to make some new connections and or develop connections you started before, and that this will be just the start of many of us working together. Because I think, so many of us are trying to do similar things, and we'll do it much better if we can do it collaboratively, if we can learn from each other and build on each other. And that was really the point of today. I want to just spend the next few minutes here opening up to get some perspectives on the day, and to start by hearing from some of you. And in particular, we've asked a representative from each group, providers, teachers, researchers, and districts, to tell us 3 takeaways from today about how to build high-impact tutoring into our education system for the long run. And what we'll do is have the 4 of them talk, but then we want to open it up to you too. So to start, Aaron, who you've heard from, is our McLeod. Aaron is a provider. He is the CEO of Intervene K-12, which is a comprehensive data-driven intervention program with high-dosage online tutoring. He's also an engineer with years of experience working and managing projects in defense and energy sectors. So he switched over to help us in this endeavor. Aaron, are you here? You are. What are 3 takeaways from today?
Okay. So first of all, can everybody join me in a round of applause for all this? Susanna, this has been amazing. So I want to thank everybody from the Accelerator program. Wow. Can you remember just after COVID started, and we were sitting on a Zoom meeting talking about tutoring might be something that would be helpful to kids. I was like, yeah, I think so. It's been helping some kids that we've been working with, but I'm very, very pleased to be a part of this and be in this room and this energy and this thought, this huge think tank now of people, of practitioners, researchers, and everybody that believes. And that's the beginning, right? You have to believe. So we have a whole bunch of people that believe, that want, from all across the country. And so that in itself is amazing. So I did take some notes on a couple of things. So three areas that, and it was hard because there was a lot of stuff there was a lot of stuff covered today. But one is staffing. Figuring out how to staff, whether you're a provider, whether you're a district, how are we going to staff sustainably? Securing that sustainable supply of tutoring that are working inside of the school districts, whether it's in the school day, or in the school day, whether it's virtual or in person. And that's something that as a provider, we look at very deeply, and we're thinking, we've done it for a while, and we're now talking to other tutor providers and trying to share some best practices around that. There was some excellent conversations around, working with the higher ed, working with community partners, and I want to welcome the tutor providers to connect with us. We can help you with that. We can help you think about how to sustainably provide those tutors. The recognition that the gaps are not just from COVID-19. These gaps were there, and just understanding that, and they're thinking about integrating high-impact tutoring into education is really not just about tackling the gaps in COVID-19, but tackling the gaps that have been there, tackling those long-term, which has become really endemic in our from the education system, where we are satisfied with 30%, 40% as a passing on some of our state standardized tests. That's unacceptable. But this evidence-based approach is something that is showing that growth. And so thinking, well, how do we make the claim or how do we make this sustainable beyond COVID-19? How do we make the case that it's not just a COVID-19 support, it is a equity support. It is how are we going to close those gaps that have been here and continue to be there for our students. And then, when you think about it, it's no accident that we're seeing those same low scores, unfortunately, in the same learning loss is in the same communities. Communities of color, low income, where tutoring is usually not something that's available to those students. And then the last thing is around implementation. Everybody has seemed to have challenges there, from providers to the districts, and just thinking about allowing, and I think it was the group that was talking about outcome-based tutoring, and allowing the providers to innovate, to be agile. We have figured out how to operate inside of your school day. We have figured out how to provide that high-quality tutoring. Don't give us too much red tape that we can't get to your kids. So, we joke at our organization all the time, but it's very real. The adults get in the way of us getting to the kids. Allow us to get to your kids, allow us to innovate, allow us to be focused on the outcome. And let's agree on that. And so, again, it's those three pillars: staffing, recognizing that COVID-19 is not just a learning loss, it is something that we've had these issues prior to COVID-19, and then working together, partnering on that implementation.
Yeah, those are really terrific. Thank you. Now I want to turn to a representative from the research group. We're going to turn it to Vincent Kwan. If you haven't met him, he's the executive director of JPAL North America, where he leads the office's efforts to reduce poverty by ensuring that policy is informed by rigorous evidence. And if certainly when I came into this as a researcher, I looked to the summaries of the research that was there. And Vincent's paper with Phil, who was also here we met earlier today, really guided a lot of my work, and I'm so happy that he's here today. Vincent, what did you take away?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Susanna, Kathy, Wendy, and the entire NSSA team for organizing this session. I think my first takeaway is that I'm just incredibly inspired to be in this room with everybody. I know a couple of years ago when the pandemic started and people were trying to figure out what solutions should we implement to help students catch up, as was mentioned, tutoring was this inkling of an idea, and to see this entire room here today, the national conversation that's been focused on tutoring, all of the dollars that have been shifted towards tutoring, I think is just a huge testament to all of the work that this entire group has put together. And I think it's a huge milestone that I think this entire room should be really proud of being able to achieve, and it's quite extraordinary. I think from the researcher perspective, a couple of key themes emerged. I think first of all, it's really exciting to see that we already have such a strong underlying evidence base on the impact of tutoring. There have been major RCTs done of a lot of different tutoring programs, spotlighting models like Saga Education that has been really effective across a lot of different contexts. But I think that there are still some really important questions that we need to answer. I think the issue or question of human capital is one open research question in terms of how we can think about tutoring as an opportunity to build the pipeline of people to ultimately enter the field of education, and really utilizing tutoring as an opportunity to transform the field of education as a whole. I think there are a lot of ongoing research questions about implementation. So I think today we heard many challenges being raised around how do you actually implement tutoring. Let's say we have the funding now and we're generally bought into the idea of tutoring being effective. Well, how do we actually translate that into action? How do we think about recruiting tutors, staffing, integration into the school day? And how do we ensure that there is enough coordination to make sure that tutoring is implemented in ways that adhere to what we know from the research best practices? And then I think the third question really focuses on scalability and sustainability. So how can the research community identify ways to really bring high impact tutoring to scale? And I think that there are a lot of innovative ideas that are emerging, including trying to leverage technology, trying to leverage other folks beyond the traditional kind of tutoring roles that we see, and how can we test some of those models to see if they're impactful. And then with sustainability, really thinking long term, how do we actually sustain tutoring beyond these ESSER dollars, and what are some of the proof points that we need to establish now in order to help sustain tutoring in the long term? So I think those are a couple of the key takeaways. There was a lot covered today, so I'm sure that I'm missing some, but a couple of the ideas that surfaced from the research breakout groups.
That was a great thing. And, you know, as is obvious, researchers can never do research unless we do it in collaboration. So it's been great as a researcher myself to be able to connect with people here today who, you know, actually do the work that we study. So thank you, Vincent. Now I turn to teachers. Maurice Delsford is a science and computer science teacher at Ferndale High School in Ferndale, Michigan. I don't know if it's the right part of Michigan, but the blue. And he's going to give us his perspective coming here. He's part of the teacher advisory group for the Accelerator. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. So my first takeaway is, as a teacher, it's often lonely, and I feel like I'm all by myself working with my students. So it's really inspiring, and also makes me feel more supported to see how many other people are working in the education space, and to hear how you're trying to help support our students and broaden the shoulders to carry the load of educating our students. So thank you. For me, what my main takeaway or takeaways are that we really need to reimagine, I think someone phrased it that way, schools, and be more innovative when we think about what we're trying to accomplish with schools. I like what Aaron said, that the school system is not, COVID did not break the school system. The school system, by and large, was not working before COVID for a lot of our students. And COVID presented an opportunity for us to try new and innovative strategies, and I don't think we managed that very well as a school system, as a country. So here we are with resources to try something new, to incorporate high-impact tutoring, but I really think we should think about how can we completely reimagine what schools are and how they work for our students. Most of our students are on TikTok, they have their own YouTube channels, you know, it's very individualized in terms of their life, and schools still seems to be very like one size fits all. So how do we customize that is a question that I have. Other things is, you know, I really think high-impact tutoring could make teachers feel more supported, which could lead to more teacher retention. We are losing teachers right and left in our district, and a lot of it is just too much work, and I don't have the support. So as opposed to this maybe being presented as a critique of teachers and their work, or a threat to them, I think it could be an opportunity to make them feel more supported. Also, I like what someone said about being unapologetic and working toward the change that we want to see in the system. So I think as a part of identifying that change, we do have to have conversations with our stakeholders. Someone mentioned empathy interviews, which I really like, to understand what the different groups feel and what's important to them. Someone mentioned the positioning, the pragmatic approach of having dialogue between making decisions for communities or deferring to them. And I really like just the idea of engaging our communities in the work as we reimagine schools to make sure that it's meeting those needs. And the last thing, small, but it was really insightful, I thought. Making sure we're spending our time on high value or high ROI strategies. So AJ, I think, mentioned the idea that there are certain places within our system where we know if we support students, like third grade reading or ninth grade algebra, that it'll have like these 400% increase in their outcomes. And I don't know that the education community at the teacher level is always aware of where we need to focus our energy. So it feels like we're spreading ourselves too thin and not getting the return on investment that we need. So identifying those and making that clear for everyone would be helpful. And just a few questions I'm left with, like how do we do this amidst the labor shortage that is stricken our country? And then how do we also do it in a way that's sustainable for teachers and operational and functional with the labor agreements that are in place? Thank you.
On some of these and learned and to be able to answer some of those questions. So we also really want to hear from the district perspective, and to share that with us, we have Brooke Lucio, who's the Research and Strategy Design Project Manager for Education Service Center Region 20 in San Antonio. In this role, she provides leadership research and direction and data management for the administration and implementation of Commissioner priorities and other Texas Education Agency initiatives. And I know we've heard a lot from Texas, but we will continue to hear a lot from Texas because they're doing so many interesting things right now. So Brooke, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. So happy to represent education service centers. It's kind of hard to explain what we do. We're not quite a district, but we're not an educational agency like Texas Education Agency. So we're a non-regulatory arm. So we're kind of that liaison between the Texas Education Agency and all of our LEAs. So when I think about all of our learning today, it really kind of stamped a lot of the pieces that I've already been thinking about and grappling with, and validated a lot of the same concerns or celebrations that I've seen. So specifically when we think about the idea of high impact tutoring or high dosage tutoring, it has started to get a lot of traction. Right? So let's be reflective on how can we continue that momentum, because if we do not advocate for ourselves and celebrate our successes, then this is just going to be one more thing in the dust, right? And so consciously as educators saying we're doing it and we're doing it well, it feels uncomfortable. But we have to do that, because when the business world does that and they strategically market themselves, they get success. And they get noticed. And if we're noticed and we're valued, then this work is going to continue. So really kind of thinking about how we're building and sustaining that momentum, specifically to change adult mindsets about what tutoring is and what tutoring isn't. Another one that I had was really about advocating for those policies. We're fortunate enough to have a phenomenal relationship with our agency, and thinking about what are things we can put in place to continue this, specifically when those dollars do go away, as we all keep saying, right? How are we going to make it a value add? And how are we going to hold people accountable? So one of the ways is possibly putting it into the accountability system. So if we are going to make sure that we're going to value student growth and student progress, then we should value acceleration, and we should value high quality tutoring for all students, not those that were unsuccessful. And then finally, it would be to kind of work and change that narrative about who can serve as a tutor. A lot of times we're pulling from our backyard of our teachers and saying, hey, go ahead and step up, let me give you this other thing to do, let me give you this other thing to do. And they're tired. I'm tired watching them be tired, so I know they're tired, right? But we have a huge pool of individuals with partnerships in higher ed to help us build that human capital. So how can we be strategic on our partnerships so that we can change the narrative of the efficacy of a virtual tutor? So thinking about the impact of virtual tutoring and face-to-face tutoring, it doesn't have to be an either or. And so that was a really big lift that I know that I'm gonna have to take back and kind of continue to work on and push. But having that guiding research and saying, no, it does work. It does work. That's really gonna help me support my districts to kind of make that shift.
Thank you. So Brooke, Maurice, Vincent, Aaron, thank you for those comments. I'd love any other thoughts. Anybody have anything they would like to say to help us process the day, or that they were thinking about that they would like us to hear? Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I thought it was a wonderfully run conference. I learned so much today, and it was so wonderful hearing all of your perspectives on all of these different things. And what I just wanted to kind of sign off with was this idea that we spent a lot of time picking apart all of the different problems and obstacles and figuring out what's important and what do we need to hold on to make this program work and make high impact tutoring something that's here for the long term. And I want to just bring that part from the teacher perspective, that the reason high impact tutoring is working and we see such value in it is because at the heart of it, it's about meeting students where they are and teaching with love. And when we have those two parts in there, that's what makes the difference in the lives of those students, as we heard right from the opening comments with AJ, that is what is at the heart of high-impact tutoring, and that no matter what decisions are made surrounding the implementation of it, as long as those two things are still there, then this will be successful for our students. So thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I think we should just end the day.